My friends, hello. The 2020 election is officially over. The Electoral College has determined and voted for Joe Biden to be our next president. And yet we continue to see President Trump argue with really no evidence that this is not over and that he's going to continue to fight. The concern with something like that is that now there are prominent political figures who are actively advocating for secession or even civil war when there's no evidence for widespread voter fraud. If there's widespread voter fraud, there should be evidence. And of the 59 cases the president has now lost, I would imagine that at least one of them would have succeeded, and none of them have. So the concern is what we're all believing and why we're believing it, and what that means for us as we move forward. President Trump is not going to be the president come January. He thinks he is, and there's a lot of people who still think he is. But short of dramatic action that would be unprecedented in our country, that simply will not be the case. With 150 million people voting, could there be some fraud? Certainly, there could be some fraud. There's likely anecdotal cases of fraud, certainly, and in certain individual situations, that's quite possible, and that should be rooted out, and that should be dealt with. Our right to vote as Americans is supposed to be our sacred right to vote, to elect who our next leader is going to be. We're supposed to have that be something that is true and honest and something that we can believe. The challenge is we're not hearing our president talking about the fact that he is fighting for our integrity of elections. He's fighting for himself, as we see with rage tweeting at 3 a.m. saying, "I won." This is not the behavior of a leader. Ironically, though, this is the behavior of the type of person who's got a lot of followers who are following him. And I've really, I'm concerned with the fact that just because somebody says something is true, it doesn't mean that it is. We can say aliens exist, but we don't have proof that aliens exist. Therefore, we can't officially say aliens exist. I can say as much as I want that I weigh as much as I did in high school. The reality is that's not true either. So just because we say something doesn't make it true. If it were true, if there were evidence, if this was the case, then yes, certainly, the president should fight and should fight hard and is entitled to. But there's been nothing proven. And there's been nothing demonstrated. I've been hoping and waiting for something to make this all worthwhile, because this is causing tremendous frustration. The concern that people are now getting violent and attacking one another, and this is just unacceptable. This isn't how we behave as Americans. This is not how we behave. Look, it sucks when your candidate loses, right? My candidate's lost lots of times. It sucks when your candidate loses. But you get another shot in 2 years or 4 years, and in this case, we'll have another shot in 4 years. And, if you voted for Trump, you'll get another shot, and everyone gets to do this every 4 years to vote for the next person. In this case, the president has lost, and it's time for him to move on. You're entitled to believe whatever you believe. If you believe that there's widespread voter fraud, I think you're welcome to obviously believe whatever you want. I mean, we can all believe anything we want. I'm the guy who says there's no such thing as right and wrong. That's in regards to ethics and morality. What we're talking about here is something that we can actually have facts to back up, and so far there are none. I question that it is logical and reasonable to believe that there's widespread voter fraud throughout our country when there's no evidence. I think it's probably more likely that there were just people who got fed up with the president's behavior and attitude and chose to switch votes, or they were activated to vote as a result of what they saw him doing. Is that harder to believe than a secret cabal of deep state operatives that include 59 judges and the entire Supreme Court? I think that's something that we all have to really evaluate and think. What is actually going on here? What is actually real here? Just because somebody says it's true doesn't mean that it is. If you are still thinking that the president has won, you're entitled to. I would encourage you to be thoughtful and serious about why do you believe what you believe. Are you listening to what one person says on Twitter, or are you looking at facts? Because currently the facts are showing that Joe Biden has won, not President Trump. This is a hard time. This is a painful time. This is a unfortunate time. Our presidential election shouldn't have to be like this. But what's appalling to me is the fact that people are now talking about civil war over the fact that one person is saying something on Twitter and other people are starting to believe it with no evidence. We need to really think and evaluate, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? What are we willing to do for one person on Twitter? What are we willing to do for ourselves as a country? We elect a president, we elect a leader. We don't hire a CEO. As effective as that CEO may be, we don't hire a CEO for this country. It's time that we all move on.